Okay, so I have been hearing this a lot from a lot of the geopolitical content that I follow, and the comment that I hear is that, how is Trump going to stop the war in Ukraine? Now, I wanted to make this video as quickly as I could. You know, for me, I don't feel like the media declares presidential victory or anything like that. They're reporting results, I guess, but I would really prefer to wait until the certification a little bit further down the line. Now, I know that Trump has been saying that he'll do it within 24 hours of getting elected, and we are 24 hours from getting elected. And while I don't want to get too deep into the situation on the ground in Ukraine, because I'm not that familiar with it, I will say that the Military Summary channel, which is one of my preferred channels for battlefield updates on the Russia-Ukraine war, says that his opinion, and he's very knowledgeable, and I would recommend anybody check that channel out, that he believes that Ukraine is already starting to allow several of the front lines to collapse on purpose, because I mean, I don't know what the strategy behind that is, but maybe it's just a matter of not investing anymore in it. I don't really know. However, everybody seems super confused about how Donald Trump will get the war stopped in 24 hours. Now, if he's already done it, and in fact, they are allowing their front lines to collapse, sort of to lose without surrendering, well, then this video is moot. But if not, I'm going to tell you how that would be done. Julian Assange of WikiLeaks once said, he said, populations don't like war. Generally, they have to be lied into war. I believe that to be true. And I'm not, you know, part of the culture. I don't know about too much about, you know, what I know about the history of Russia and Ukraine, I know since really the war started, or the special military operation. So I don't have a lot of independent knowledge, or, you know, I haven't studied this, but there is a lot of information that's out there that seems to be undisputed in terms of what was going on all the way back to 2014 in that region. So they had a lot of problems. They had a lot of conflicts already between them for a lot of different reasons. And primarily it had to do with oppression of Russian people and Russian-speaking people who were living in Ukraine. Now, I don't want to get into, you know, like I said, populations are lied into war. I've made another video about the Gaza-Palestine, how I feel like they were lied into war with Israel. And I do believe that this is a similar situation where people are willing to fight for something that they believe in, but what they're fighting for is just not true. And so this is, I'm gonna tell you how I believe that Donald Trump could or would stop the war in Ukraine in a relatively quick period of time, and without very much interaction. First and foremost, he needs to use his bully pulpit to tell the truth about what's been going on in that country. Let's start with that. Maybe put it in his address to Congress. I mean, you know, he's got to be really, really bold with it, because I don't think that we have time. You know, every day people are dying. Thousands of people are dying every week, maybe more. We don't really know. I don't think it really matters who it is. I think that we can all agree that soldiers are oftentimes, while patriotic and love of their country, and I don't know why we're acting like that's a bad thing. You know, Russian soldiers should love their country. Ukrainian soldiers should love their country. And I would argue that they love their country so much and they're so willing to fight for their country that they may have been led into something they didn't have to be led into. But either way, you know, it's sad, because the people who are fighting that fight are very rarely the same people who are making the decisions that lead to that fight. So that, I believe, is just unfortunate and very tragic and sad. So he's got to use his bully pulpit to tell the truth about the history of Ukraine, the oppression that was going on, the U.S. involvement under the mantle of, we're not going to continue to meddle in the affairs of other countries in this way going forward, at least not under my administration. And I hope to restructure our government so that it's much more difficult to do that in the future. Now, these are things that everyone in the deep state and the establishment already hate him for. They're afraid he's going to do this. But if we want to save as many lives as possible, we just as soon get it out there. Everyone already knows already. Jackson Hinkle has been talking about this. You know, the Duran has been talking about this. There are many channels out there that have already been talking about this, and nobody disputes that this is true. So let's tell the truth about the country and get that out there, because now what you do is you create an environment where people should be ashamed to continue to support this war. Number two, he needs to refuse to recognize Volodymyr Zelensky as the president of Ukraine until he is reelected as the president of Ukraine. Why should the here we are, the United States talking about, we don't recognize authoritarians, we don't recognize dictators, we need to be spreading democracy. This man's term in office expired back in May. And so why does the United States have to recognize him? And by the way, my understanding is that the United States had elections during the Civil War. So if we can do it, they can do it. I'm sure that there are there's many wars, civil wars going on in this country. And generally speaking, what's going on in Ukraine is very much, it has the features of a civil war, because the people that the Russians went in to fight on behalf of were primarily people of Russian ethnicity and who spoke Russian language. This is something that we wouldn't tolerate in our country. Imagine if we here in the United States felt like American people of American descent who lived in Mexico were being oppressed and tortured. We would cut off aid to Mexico. I would hope. Maybe we wouldn't, but certainly the American people wouldn't be happy about it, especially if they were now becoming involved in actual civil war in that country. And so, you know, I know that American is not really an ethnicity, so it's a difficult equivalency. But the point is, it should be, you know, if we believe that people have a right to self-determination, then this is a situation we really should have stayed out of. And I think if we, as the United States, has stayed out of it, it would have been, it would not have come to this. I think that's pretty obvious. So they need to have elections. Trump needs to mention Gonzalo Lira. He needs to call them out for what happened to that man. I hope he brought it up in the meeting that he had with President Zelensky back a couple months ago. But if he didn't, he needs to bring it up now. He needs to call out the persecution of churches, the imprisonment of clergymen. He needs to call that out. He needs to call out the censorship. He needs to call out the banning of political parties, and he needs to, he should not be demanding that they do anything. I think the United States needs to stop demanding that countries do anything, but we can condition our support and our recognition on certain principles that we as a country should believe in. And frankly, I don't believe in foreign aid. I think this is something that we as a country need to stop doing. We need to have partnerships with countries that are mutually beneficial and not pumping money into their country to pay them off to keep them down, which is what we've been doing. I think that that's disgusting. So he needs to call out the things that are going on. And then once he declares that the United States cannot offer any type of support at all, including intelligence, to them until they have had elections, so that because here's the thing, if they tried to negotiate some kind of settlement now, Russia actually cannot negotiate a settlement with them. Because if they try to negotiate a settlement now, what happens when there are elections and the new leader comes along and they say, if a new leader comes along and they say, we don't have to recognize what he did, that would be untenable. And I'm not defending what Russia's doing or not, but I'm just saying, at this point, they're really, really invested in this with the blood of their countrymen as well. Why would they want to make it be all for nothing? They're not going to do that. If you know anything about this country, the history of this country and the culture of this country, you know that they're not going to do that. So they're never going to negotiate with someone that is potentially an illegitimate president. Okay? So once they've had elections, the United States needs to say, we will, help you with your reconstruction. if there are no Banderites involved in your government, you cannot have banned political parties. You cannot, you can do what you want, but we're not going to offer you any support, including support with Reconstruction, unless those conditions are met. And by the time he gets finished telling the truth about what has been going on, with the certain type of people who have come to power in that country that the United States put in power, no one in Congress, if Donald Trump doesn't shut up about it, and he shouldn't, is going to be willing to vote for support for that. If they do, they'll never be able to get reelected again. And so I think that brings an end to the war again, if it doesn't end on its own before he gets around to it. So, I think that the United States, we need to start winding down our interventionist foreign policy. We need to start winding down the bribery of U.S. aid. Okay, all of these things need to stop. It's a robbery of American taxpayers. We have plenty of problems here at home. U.S. aid should be for the U.S. That's my position on it. And I think it all needs to end. Americans, my view is that we are the most generous people in the world. Really, we are the most empathetic. More people from the United States will show up in a disaster area on the other side of the world, I think, than anywhere. This is something that many Americans do and wouldn't not do. Like, we care about this stuff. I think that we do by nature. I know many people who have gone to do humanitarian work in other countries. And I don't even know that many people. I know people who have gone to other countries just to do humanitarian work, Habitat for Humanity, Peace Corps, different things like that. I know people who went to Thailand to help with the tsunami recovery, all those kinds of things. And we can crowdsource funding for that as Americans if we get to keep more of our own money. Let us do it if we want to do it. I believe we do want to do it. I don't know, that doesn't mean we want to be scammed, but that means that people who care about it can figure out how to organize and do that on their own. They don't need to take the money from the government, who is a coercive force, to implement poor policy that's bad for that country in that country. That's a terrible thing to do. I hope that most people will choose to focus their energy here in the U.S., but I'm not upset if people have other passions and other things that they want to pursue. I think that's a good thing overall. I think it's good for America. I think it's good for the world that people have charitable intentions. So yeah, I think that we need to start winding down and ending our foreign aid investments, in countries that are only for geopolitical purposes to gain geopolitical advantages over China and Russia and all these other places. And so, yeah, I think it's that simple. And I'd be curious to see what anyone else thinks. My view is that Joe Biden broke the world. He broke the entire world, and he did it in record time. And everybody wants to pretend like that didn't happen, but it happened. And now we need to fix it as soon as possible. If you like my content, please like this video, please comment, subscribe to my channel if you are enjoying the type of videos I'm making. After probably early next year, depending on the climate of things, I really want to start focusing on, and I'm learning how to edit videos so that I can make content about the judicial corruption in Los Angeles County. I really want to figure out a way to put a stop to that. I have lived that for more than 10 years now. It's so burdensome. It still happens. It still continues. And so I'm going to be focusing my energy on that, and hopefully that, as well as some of the things that I've learned about how to interact better with the world around, how to make marriage great again, how to make family great again, those kinds of things. So if there's something that you would like me to talk about, if it's something that I know about, I'll be happy to address it. And I will see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching.